always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to The Family. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. Yesterday was Family Day, a day set aside to spend with those who are the closest to you. And extended family would also work quite well. Francis E. Willard wrote, "I cannot help believing that the world will be a better and happier place when people are praised more and blamed less. When we utter in their hearing the good we think, and also gently intimate the criticisms we hope may be of service. For the world grows smaller every day. It will be but a family circle after a while." Francis E. Willard. I read recently that families will become larger in this dicey economy. More family members will be under the same roof in order to survive these tough times. It harkens back to a simpler time in our history when there were also large family groups under the same roof for almost the very same purpose. Whether you're a large group or just a few, I hope you shared yesterday with those who act as your support in these troubled times. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Alicia Keys, "If I Ain't Got You," and the Beatles, and "Let It Be." I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Guy Murchie in Music of the Spheres, published by Houghton Mifflin, wrote, and I quote, "When a man feels weary or depressed or in pain, just stepping into clear sunshine does something to him. I have felt it often. Sunshine is manifestly more than heat and light and invisible rays, even as the whole can be greater than the sum of the parts. It is something subtler, nearer the spiritual, something close to the quick of life itself. It seems to me that the sun has in some degree the quality of a patriarchal blessing, a bestowal of that feeling of security that comes through the love of dear parents still living in the old family homestead where one was born and raised. For the sun is truly the birthstead of the whole earth." Guy Murchie in Music of the Spheres, and you can almost hear the sunbeams. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. RyanDan, "Like the Sun," and Elton John with Your Song. And I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Joyce Maynard from At Home in the World, published by Picador USA, wrote, and I quote, "It is not only children who grow. Parents do too. As much as we watch to see what our children do with their lives, they are watching us to see what we do with ours. I can't tell my children to reach for the sun. All I can do is reach for it myself." Unquote. Joyce Maynard from At Home in the World, published by Picador USA. The Family, this hour. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Bette Midler with The Wind Beneath My Wings, and Josh Groban and You Raise Me Up. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. John Marks Templeton, quoted by Gary Wolfe in Wired, said, 3 of my children are medical doctors. They know 100 times as much about the body as my grandfather knew. But they don't know much more about the soul than he did. If spiritual leaders would use scientific research, there is no reason we couldn't multiply spiritual information as we have scientific information. John Marks Templeton, quoted by Gary Wolfe in Wired. Some thoughts this hour on the family as we think of those who shared Family Day with us yesterday. Phyllis Giroux in the New York Times made an interesting observation. She wrote, and I quote, "There are 3 children in this family. If they were to confront a spider web in the garden, each child would react differently. The first child would examine the web and wonder how the spider wove it. The second would worry about where the spider was at that particular moment. But the third child would exclaim, 'Oh, look, a trampoline.' 1 reality, 3 dimensions. True for the spider web, true for the garden." Unquote. Phyllis Giroux in the New York Times. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Jann Arden with Good Mother, Celine Dion, Because You Loved Me, and Phil Collins, True Colors. And I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Catherine Butler Hathaway from The Little Locksmith, and published by Coward McCann and Gehogan, wrote, and I quote, "Well-brought-up people are afraid of having any experience which seems to them uncharacteristic of themselves as they imagine themselves to be. Yet this is the only kind of experience that is really alive and can lead them anywhere worth going. New, strange, uncharacteristic, uncharted experience, coming at the needed moment, is sometimes as necessary in a person's life as a plow in a field." Unquote. Catherine Butler Hathaway from The Little Locksmith. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Superman and 5 for Fighting. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. This is a dark writing, but one that has a kernel of truth at its center. It is called Prosperity, its author unknown. And I quote, "A rich man asked a Zen master to write something down that could encourage the prosperity of his family for years to come. It would be something that the family could cherish for generations. On a large piece of paper, the master wrote, 'Father dies, son dies, grandson dies.' The rich man became angry when he saw the master's work. 'I asked you to write something down that could bring happiness and prosperity to my family. Why do you give me something depressing like this?' 'If your son should die before you,' the master answered, 'this would bring unbearable grief to your family. If your grandson should die before your son, this also would bring great sorrow. If your family generation after generation, disappears in the order I have described, it will be the natural course of life. This is true happiness and prosperity. It reminds me of something that I featured during yesterday's podcast, a writing from George F. Will in the Washington Post, who said, and I quote, "Biologically, adults produce children. Spiritually, children produce adults. Most of us do not grow up until we have helped children do so. Thus do the generations form a braided cord." Unquote. George F. Will in the Washington Post. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. I hope you will tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.